Hey, what's up you guys? My name is Jo and welcome back to my channel. So, am I wearing a side ponytail? Yes. And I will be taking no further questions at this time about that topic. So today we are going to be doing my May wrap up and I have 20 books to talk about. So let's just get right into it. Yeah, it's gonna be a long video. So buckle in, get you a snack, get you a drink, let's go. Let's grab the kitty cat notebook and get started. So a couple of these I finished after I had posted my April wrap up, so they were read at the very end of April. They're mixed in here, but I wanted to wrap them up and include them because I did read them and I haven't talked about them yet. Crown of Midnight and Air of Fire, both by Sarah J. Maas. This is book 2 and 3 in the Throne of Glass series. I'm reading these as a part of the SJM Along, who is hosted by the Book Refuge and a bunch of other people. Crown of Midnight I liked better than Throne of Glass. It's still not at the point where the series starts to get going. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. However, Air of Fire is when the series gets going. So in Air of Fire, the series really gets going. There's a lot of magic. There's a lot of emotional development, character development. There's new characters introduced who I love. So yeah, I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. Obviously, it's one of my favorites in the series. So there's that. Awesome. So the next book that I want to talk about is The Longing of Lone Wolves by Lana P. This is book 1 in the Fae Guardian series. This series is kind of like a post-apocalyptic fantasy. This first book, we are following Clark, who wakes up in a different time than what she, remembers being in. And she is not in Las Vegas anymore. She is pretty much like thousands of years later in time. We're also following Rush, who is a Fae Guardian. He's a wolf shifter. He has been cursed to where nobody can see him. He's kind of like a ghost in his own world. He's been kind of banished from the Guardians for a punishment of some sort. And when he comes across Clark, she is in a very precarious and dangerous situation, and she can also see him. Obviously, it's enemies to lovers. This series has fated mates. It's fantastic. I gave this first book 4 stars. So the second book that I read in this series is The Solace of Sharp Claws. And this is following Laurel, who is the second human in this kind of group of humans. She was friends with Clark in the past, like the past because they jumped in the future. Anyways, and also Thorn, who is a character that we meet in the first book. I really like this book as well. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Like I said, these are fated mates. It's fun. It's fantastic. It's magic. So keeping on with the Fae Guardian series. I feel like I have a hair. Real cute. Okay, so keeping on with the Fae Guardian series, I read The Dreams of Broken Kings. This is the 3rd book in the series. This is following Ada, 3rd woman in their little group of friends to wake up in this new time period, and Jasper, who is a guardian who has completely lost his memory. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I really like that one. I really like Jasper's character. So the Fae Guardian series is a lot of fun. There's a lot of magic. There's a lot of intrigue. Obviously, these women who have woken up in this new time period have no idea what's going on. There's Fae now. There's magic now. They worship something called the Well. It's very confusing for our women who wake up, but of course they have their big burly men to guide them through the world, and it is fantastic. Wolf Gone Wild. I absolutely love this series. This is the first that I've read of Juliet Cross on recommendation from my friend Jen over at the Book Refuge. Hi Jen, thank you. Thank you for this. So these books are set in New Orleans following the Savoy sisters, and the Savoy sisters are a family of witches. Wolf Gone Wild is following our first little Savoy lady, Evie, who is a hex breaker, a curse breaker kind of deal. And our hero is named Mateo. He is a werewolf shifter who has been cursed to where he cannot shift. So during the story, you get Evie's perspective, you get Mateo's perspective, but you also get his wolf, Alpha, in his head. And I absolutely love Alpha. It's fantastic. I really, really love this book. This book in particular has a lot of nerd and dorky things in it. There's a lot of talk about Star Wars, Marvel, DC, all of the nerdy goodness, and I ate it up. It was absolutely delicious. So I read this one and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It was fantastic. So the next book in the series is Don't Hex and Drive. Am I holding up the right one? Yes. Which is following Isadora, who is another of the Savoy sisters, and Devraj, who is a vampire Bollywood star who has come to New Orleans to help solve a crime involving some missing girls. This one was really good as well. I really loved it. 5 out of 5 stars. So the next book that I read in the series is obviously Witches Get Stitches. This is following Violet and Nico Cruz, who is a werewolf shifter. This is one of the books in which the man falls first, in my opinion. It's debatable, but I would say that the hero falls first in this one, and it is really good as well. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. There was something that just didn't really connect with the 2 characters for me, and it was one of those situations where I felt like they weren't getting together for stupid reasons. I still really loved it, and I'm so excited to continue on with the series. 4 out of 5 stars. stars. So the next book that I read in that series was a novella collection called Walking in a Witchy Wonderland. This is book 3.5 in the series. This is kind of like a collection of Christmassy kind of novellas. Half of these novellas I absolutely loved, I died for, I cried, I shed a few tears in a couple of them, and the other half I didn't really think were necessary, but I feel that way a lot about novella collections. It's not Juliet's fault. We love you, Juliet. But it was still a lot of fun to see my babies again, my favorite characters again, and I really enjoyed it, and I gave it 3.5 stars. So the next book that I read in the month of May is The Dark One by Nikki St. Crow. Okay, so The Dark One is the second book in the Vicious Lost Boys series. These are super short novella kind of length books. The first one is following this girl named Winnie, who is kind of like a descendant from Wendy Darling, you know, our main woman in Peter Pan. It's a Peter Pan retelling. Did I tell you that? Probably not. It's a Peter Pan retelling. It's a dark Peter Pan retelling, a spicy Peter Pan retelling. I love it so much. And so every single Darling woman, on the day that they turn 18, Peter Pan comes for them and takes them to Neverland. This is a reverse harem. Normally reverse harems do not work for me. I haven't tried that many, but this is the only one that has just stuck with me. And I love the characters. I love all the boys. I love Winnie. I love all of their little separate relationships because she has different relationships with all of them. My necklace is getting messed up. And I also really love the plot. There is an underlying plot, which is insane. I really do like the plot and I find it really intriguing. So I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. The spice is spicy. The characters are bomb. The plot is on point. What else can you ask for? 5 out of 5 stars. I can't wait to read the next one. There's a wasp nest up there and fuzz. On brand. The next book that I read in the month of May is After You by Jojo Moyes. This is the second book in the Me Before You situation. If you've seen the movie, you've seen the movie. It's following our main character, Louisa Clark, who is looking for a job. She ends up getting a job being the caretaker of this man named Will Traynor, and he is a quadriplegic, and he's going through some issues, and they end up falling for each other. This is following the events of the end of the first book. If you've not read the series or watched the movie, you should go do it. It's a lot of fun. It's not fun. It's not fun. Kill that right now. It's not fun. It's very emotional, and they deal with a lot of grief and a lot of suffering, and there's a lot of trigger warnings, so it's not fun. It's not fun, Jordan. What are you talking about? Louisa is dealing with grief. She's dealing with loss. She's dealing with guilt. She is going to therapy groups and different things like that and just trying to heal from the events of the first book. I really, really like this one. It made me cry a little bit. I liked it mainly for the emotional aspects. I gave this one 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. It's not a fun book. Don't get me wrong. It's not a fun book. It's very emotional, but I really liked it. The next book that I read was my least favorite book that I read in the month of May, and that is The Stopover by Tuyel Swan. This is the first book in the Miles High Club. The Stopover is about this woman named Emily who meets this man, Jameson, on this plane. The plane ends up delayed and stuck in New York because of a blizzard. They end up having a one-night stand, as you do. So 12 months later, she is getting ready to start this new job. It is her dream job, and guess what? Mr. Jameson is the CEO, and he still wants her. This is a difficult book. I really found Jameson to be unlikable. He was toxic with a capital T. Toxic. He was rude. He was aggressive. He was mean for no reason. He had this weird situation with his ex-girlfriend. I didn't care for it at all, and yet Emily kept coming back to him, even though he was a complete and total ass. He was an ass. He was not very nice. I didn't like him at all. I found it really, really hard to root for these characters because they were constantly getting in arguments. The relationship was obviously toxic, but somehow they got their happily ever after. I didn't really like it. I gave it 2.5 stars. However, I did push through. I did push through, and I read The Takeover by T.L. Swan, and I really, really liked it, which is complete 180 from the first one. So this is following Claire, who is a widow. Her husband died tragically and surprised tragic death of her husband. And at the beginning of this book, she is fighting tooth and nail to keep her husband's business afloat, and it's going under. It's going under. Enter Tristan Miles. Tristan Miles is a CEO shark man, and he is wanting to buy her business. She wants nothing to do with him. He is obviously intrigued and starts chasing her around. Not really, but you know, he starts chasing her a little bit. I loved Claire's children in this book. Normally, I'm not a huge fan of like kids, but these children were a huge part of the book, and they were phenomenal characters. I love them so much. And I loved watching Tristan have to grapple with the fact that this woman has children. These children don't want him there. And yet he still fights and fights and fights to not only prove himself to Claire, but also prove his worth to her children and show, you know, that he cares about them. He wants to be in their lives, and he works it hard. I really like this book. The kids are hilarious. Tristan is such a sweet little numpkin. I want to eat his face. And during this story, Claire is dealing with a lot of grief and guilt over her husband's death, and also the fact that she may want to be in a relationship with another man and what that would mean. It's really good. It's emotional. It's heartwarming. It's delicious. It's very funny at times too, and very sad as well. I cried a few times. It was really good. I give it 4.5 stars. Okay, so the next book that I read in the month of May was Zodiac Academy: The Awakening by Caroline Peckham and Suzanne Valenti. This is the first book in the Zodiac Academy series. The Zodiac Academy series has been everywhere, all over Book Talk. I actually did a vlog specifically for my reading this book. If you want to go check it out, it's completely spoiler free. I have a little review at the end. It's a lot of fun. I'm planning on doing a dedicated vlog for each of these books as I go through them once a month until the release of the 8th one. This is my first time reading the Zodiac Academy series, and it is so much fun, and it's delicious. It's literally like reality TV meets Harry Potter and magic. And it's really good. It's yummy. It's yumptious. It's addicting. Yumptious is not a word. We're just gonna keep moving on. So in this story, we are following two twins, Darcy and Tori, who are orphans, and they have just recently turned 18, and the foster parent that they were living with pretty much kicked their asses out. So they are just trying to survive in the world as two freshly 18-year-olds who have just had a hard lot in life, okay? So enter Lance O'Ryan, who pretty much hops into their lives, breaks into their apartment, and says, hey, by the way, you guys are missing Fae royalty. You need to bop on over to Zodiac Academy so you can maybe take your birthright if you pass. I don't know. It's a bully romance. In this book, there is no romance, but there is some bullying, so just, you know, check your triggers if that's something that you're worried about. I personally wasn't affected by anything until the very end. The very end had me frustrated. The bullying progresses throughout the story, so the very end is where it kind of hits its peak, and I was sad and frustrated, but in a good way. It gave me lots of emotions. I really, really like this story. I really like the world. There's elemental magic. There's all kinds of things happening. There's political intrigue. Obviously, the guys who are bullying these two twins are the heirs of the families who have been ruling in the absence of the royal family, and obviously they're not too happy about these Vega twins showing up being lost princesses and all, because that means that they'll potentially lose their power. I feel like later on in the series we'll get a little bit more information about why they're bullying specifically, they're bullying, but we'll see. I'm really excited to continue on with the series. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. It's fantastic. It was a lot of fun. It was yummy. So the next book that I read in the month of May, I probably should have mentioned with the other Sarah J Maas books, but it's Acotar. We also read this in the month of May for the SJM along. I listened to the graphic audio of this one for the first time. I've never listened to the regular audiobook. I've always read this physically for some reason, but I did listen to the graphic audiobook for the first time, and I thought they did a fantastic job. The only complaint that I had was the smooching. They pretty much use the same track, the same smooch track every single time that there's smooches, so there's no variety of the smooch, and it just sounds a little bit weird because there's grunts and groans and stuff. It's a little bit weird, let's be honest. But it did bump my rating for Acotar from a 3-star to a 4-star. I really like the voices used in this. I loved the voices used by the guys. I was really nervous about that because I don't really like male narrators. I really hope that they do a graphic audiobook for the rest of the series because I think that would be a lot of fun. The next 4 books that I want to talk about are all a part of the same series, and that is the Maze of Shadow series by Catherine Ann Kingsley. So the first one is called The Unseelie Prince. I gave this one 4 stars. In this series, we are following our main woman, Abigail, who's living in the cottage. She's just chilling. Her husband, Marcus, has left her. He is bopped off to America for some reason, and she is a little bit of a witch. She doesn't really consider herself super powerful, but what she has been doing is casting a spell over her doorway in hopes that her husband will return. One night, though, somebody else answers the call, and it turns out to be Valroy, the Unseelie Prince, and he wants to become the Unseelie King, but in order to do that, he must take a bride. So he yanks her ass right out the cottage, straight out the cottage. One thing that I want to talk about is Valroy is not a nice guy. He's not a nice guy. He wants to become the Unseelie King so that he can fulfill his birthright by destroying the Seelie Fae and also the human realm. He is not a nice guy. He's a killer. He's a killer, Bella. And he is someone who is not going to change for anybody, not even Abigail. I think Catherine and Kingsley did a really good job at representing the differences, the major differences between the human culture and the Fae culture in terms of cruelty and showing of affection and just, you know, kind of like that, because the Fae are kind of debauched. I gave the first book 4 stars. In this series, the secondary characters, the side characters, were actually my favorite. These are some of my favorite side characters that I have read this year. I think they are absolutely phenomenal. I love them and I will protect them with my life. Come at me. If anybody hurts Perrin, I will come after everyone. The Unseelie Crown, the second book, I gave 4 out of 5 stars. The Unseelie Throne, I gave 4 out of 5 stars, which is the third book. And the Unseelie King, I gave 2.53 stars. So let's talk about it. The Unseelie King. I was not satisfied with the end of this series. I was not satisfied with how it wrapped up. And in my opinion, it's debatable on whether or not I would consider this a happily ever after in general. I was not satisfied with it. I felt like it wrapped up really, really quickly. And the solution to all of the problems that they had as a couple and also that the world had politically, I felt like were wrapped up really easily into a nice little bow that didn't really work for me. But the rest of the series is fantastic. I really, really liked it. There's a lot of cock blocking in this book, so if cock blocking gets on your nerves, maybe, you know, hesitantly pick it up. You do have to wait 2 books before the characters actually get it on, and I feel like a lot of the times throughout the series, the main couple was separated for reasons. I'm not gonna say they were bad reasons, I'm just gonna say that they were reasons. They were separated for reasons, and I felt like their separation kind of hindered the conflict from being resolved, and that's one thing that grinds my gears a little bit, but I still really liked it. I really liked the world. I thought it was so much fun. So the last book that I want to talk about that I finished in the month of May is Demon Slayer Volume 1, which is a manga. I watched the anime. I really, really liked the anime. I have a Nezuko sticker on the back of my car, so I felt like it was time to read the manga. Plus, I really want to continue on with the story. So this is following a boy named Tanjiro who sets out to become a demon slayer after his family is brutally slaughtered by a demon. The only family member that survived this demon attack is his little sister Nezuko, who has unfortunately turned into a demon. And he vows that he will become a demon slayer, find out how to turn her back into a human, and hunt and kill the demon who slaughtered his family. Obviously, this is just the introduction to the series, but I'm so excited to read more of this manga. I gave it 5 stars. So those are all of the books that I read in the month of May. Let me know down below what your favorite and least favorite book that you read in the month of May is. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.